everyone, I'm Princess, and today I'm going to be showing you a standard deck built out of cards just from the Ixalan set. It's Black-White Vampires, tribal, obviously, and yeah, I thought I'd just go through my deck and show what I've built. Rivals of Ixalan is a week away, so obviously this deck's not going to stay this way because there are a lot of good cards in there that I'm going to add to improve this deck. But, I've had a lot of fun with it so far. I think it's performed very well for cards that only came from a single set. I think it performed admirably, and it's only going to get better when Rivals comes out. So, let's start with the obvious. 2, Vona, Butcher of Magam. She is a 5 mana, so that's 3 white and a black, for a 4/4 legendary Vampire Knight with Vigilance, Lifelink, and you can tap her and pay 7 to destroy target non-land permanent. You can only activate this ability during your turn. Now, this ability I think is very powerful, because firstly she has Vigilance, so you can attack, she won't tap, and then you can do some combat trick shenanigans. And she has Lifelink, so if you do use her, then you can at least, if you use her and she's still alive, you can gain back some of the life you paid. So you might only end up paying 3 life to destroy a non-land permanent, and that's very powerful. So I'm only running 2 of her because she's expensive, and I feel like 2 is the right number. I feel like 3 might be a bit much because this deck mostly seems to focus around being aggressive, and then when you get towards, when you start running out of power, then you drop your bombs and then they get you the rest of the way. So yeah, so that's 2 Vonas. After that, I have 3 Call to the Feast. Call to the Feast is a sorcery, 4 mana, so that's 2 white and a black. And just very simple, creates you 3 1/1 white vampire tokens with lifelink. I'm running 3 because I want to see at least one of these a game. This is usually the turn 4 drop you want to get your board wide, because they lead very well into another card, which we'll get to. But yeah, it's very straightforward. 4 mana for 3 1/1s with lifelink. I think it's well costed. It's impactful. It changes board states. Sometimes, it can slow your opponent down. It can speed up your aggression. I think it performs, very well in this deck. So those are just the gold cards I run. Moving on to the white. We'll start off with 4 Danto's Vanguard. Now, Danto's Vanguard is 1 and a white for a 1/1 vampire soldier. As long as it is attacking, it gets +2 to its power. So when it attacks, it's a 3/1. And second ability is you can pay 4 life to make her indestructible. Now, I think she's great in terms of aggression. You pay 2 mana, you get her down, you swing in with her next turn. She's 3 power, 1 toughness. Your opponent either takes 3 or they throw something in front of it, but then you can pay 4 to make it indestructible. So it doesn't trade, it just, it's kind of like trading with an upside, except it doesn't really trade. So as far as aggression goes, it's really good. And I don't really worry about paying the 4 life, because a lot of vampires, especially running around with all the tokens or the life gain, you're going to earn all your life back eventually. So, paying 4 life to make you indestructible, same as how, you pay 7 with Vona. It's not really that high a cost when half your deck has lifelink in it. Alright, moving on. Now, these aren't creatures, but I run them in place of creatures. We have 3 Legion's Landing. Legion's Landing is a single white for a legendary enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you get a single 1/1 white vampire with lifelink. And if you attack with 3 or more creatures, you transform it. And, I'll check here, it transforms into a Danto the First Fort, which is a legendary land. And it taps for a single white, or you can pay 2 and a white and tap it to create a 1/1 white vampire. Now, I like this card for a few reasons. It's a nice 1-drop. It helps you ramp if turn 3, you wouldn't be able to turn 3. Turn 4, you can swing with 3 creatures. Then if you've also made your land drop, you'll have 5 lands, which I think is great. And when it flips, it's untapped, can help you with combat tricks. You know, it's just overall it performs really well, and the nice thing is you can have the enchantment and the land out, and say you have the land and the enchantment, you tap the land to play a spell, and then you swing with 3 creatures, you flip the enchantment, legendary rule applies, you sack the tapped one, and you have an untapped one, so you've got a bit of a, you know, makes you a bit flexible with your mana, which I really like. Alright, moving on to last 3 white creatures. Mavrin Fane, Dusk Apostle. Ooh, he is fun. So he's 2 and a white, so it's 3 mana, for a 2/2 Vampire Cleric, legendary. Whenever 1 or more non-token vampires attacks, you create 1/1/1 vampire. So it doesn't trigger per vampire attacking, it's only if you attack with 1, which is fine, because surprisingly it puts in a lot of work. You swing with either your biggest thing that's not going to die, or you swing with something that you can give indestructible, and you know, you're just slowly building up this token board state, which, you know, it gets out of hand quite quick. Like, he's performed very well for me. And I mean, obviously I only run 3 because legendary rule, and you know, you don't want to be sitting with 3 of this in your hand when you got 1 on the field, so 3 is a good number. Alright, white non-creature spells. Not running a lot. This creature does focus. This deck does mostly focus on its creatures, so very straightforward. 4 Vampire Zeal. Straightforward combat trick, very powerful. I love it. Single white, instant speed. Target creature gets +2/+2, and if it's a vampire, it gets first strike. So it's like, it's the perfect combat trick for vampires, you know. The number of times I've swung with a 1/1 token and my opponent's like, oh, okay, I'll just block it with this 3/3 or this 2/2, and you go, nope, Vampire Zeal. Or you swing with one of your favorite creatures and your opponent's like, alright, I'll just block profitably here with this creature that's bigger than yours, and you go, haha, Vampire Zeal. So, you know, I kill it, because first strike, because it's a vampire. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Vampire Zeal performs so well, and I mean, buffing something with lifelink, great. I mean, buffing Bona with that is wonderful. And then lastly, 2 Ixalan's Binding. Ixalan's Binding, 4 mana, 3 and a white, for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls until it leaves the battlefield. Extra bit of sauce, your opponent cannot cast spells of the same name that's exiled underneath, which is great, because, you know, maybe you're in your 2nd round or your 3rd round, you know by now what the bombs in your opponent's deck are. They've played one, Ixalan's Binding it, as long as Ixalan's Binding is on the field, they cannot play another one. The number of times I played this, hitting a Glorybringer, and then my opponent cursed because they had another 2 Glorybringers in hand, and now they can't cast them. So yeah, like, I mean, you know, it's sorcery speed, but I think that's fine, because I feel the added bonus of your opponent not being able to cast the same card again outweighs the instant speed. Alright, so that's all my white cards. Moving on to my black, we have my baby, 4 Vicious Conquistadors. This card is so good. This is exactly the 1-drop you want in this vampire deck. It's single black mana, Vampire Soldier, 1 power, 2 toughness. Whenever it attacks, each opponent loses 1 life. That's great. So, like, I mean, it's essentially, I mean, you can essentially equate it to a 2/2, but the nice thing is, even if it's blocked, your opponent still gets pinged for 1. So, you know, early game, you swing. It's great against aggro decks, because usually by turn 1 they've got, you know, their Bowmat Courier. You know, you've got your Vicious Conquistadors. You swing, they lose a life. They can either block and lose their Bowmat Courier, or they can take another ping. And you know, like, Vicious Conquistador, he's just super aggressive and super lovely in the vampire deck. Alright, next up, we've got 3 Blood-Crazed Paladins. Or Paladin, the Paladin plural, because it's 3. So, he's not my favorite card, but you know, he can perform. Like, he's definitely going to get replaced when Rivals comes out, but for the moment he does his job. So he's 1 and a black, so it's 2 mana for a 1/1 vampire with flash, so I mean, that's nice. And when he enters the battlefield, he gets a +1/+1 counter for each creature that died. That's each creature, so that includes your opponents. That also includes tokens. So I find he works really nicely towards later game when your opponent might have the upper hand, but you've still got a board state. So he swings with everything, you block to cause as many trades as you can, and then say like 6 creatures have died in that turn, then you flash him in, and he's a 7/7, and you know you're somewhat back in the game because he's big, he's tough, he's powerful. I mean, he's not great if you don't have a board state and you top deck him, he's pretty terrible. But I mean, you know, he does his job for the moment until I find something better. I'm sure I'll find something better. I'm pretty sure I will. Alright, and the last of the creatures in the deck, and probably the most important, because this card just wins you the game if you have it in your opening hand with a good build-up, or if you top deck it during a board stall. It is Sanctum Seeker. 3 copies, not 4. 3's enough. It's a 4-drop. You know, it's a bit expensive with the curve and all that. So, Sanctum Seeker. 4 mana, 2 black. 3 power, 4 toughness, Vampire Knight. Whenever a vampire you control attacks, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So for every vampire that attacks, you drain your opponent for 1 and you gain 1. This card is so good because the number of times you go turn 1, vampire, turn 2, vampire, turn 3, vampire, turn 4, Sanctum Seeker, swing with 3 vampires. Before they've even had a chance to declare attackers, you drain them with 3 and you've gained 3. I mean, that's not even to say that, you know, occasionally you get the dream moment where you come turn 4 and you get called to the feast and you get 3 1/1 vampires, and then you wait a turn, and then they maybe swing, you take some damage, you don't care. Turn 5, Sanctum Seeker, swing for 6, swing with 6 creatures, they get drained for 6, and then, you know, that's not even counting combat damage, things like that. Like, Sanctum Seeker really closes out a game, and it's such a good card. I love it so much. When I first saw it, I undervalued it a bit, and then I saw in play, it's just so powerful. Alright, and then to my black non-creature spells. Starting off, I've got 2, I've got Argyle. I'm going to say Arguel's Bloodfast. It's 2 mana, 1 and a black for a legendary enchantment, and you can pay 1 and a black and 2 life to draw a card. So it's card draw. Like the vampire deck does run out of gas kind of quickly, and card draw is very important. So Argyle's Bloodfast is, it's a good card in the deck. It's not the best, but it's good. And then its second line of text is, at the beginning of your upkeep, if I have 5 or less life, it flips. So now obviously I never want to be at 5 or less life, because I'm trying to win here. But surprisingly, like with the vampire deck, you can afford to drop down, because if you play properly, you can usually bring yourself back up. And I mean, Argyle's Bloodfast can help, because when it flips, it turns into Temple of Ixalan. That's Ixalan, all these Aztec names. So it taps for a single black, or you can tap it and sacrifice a creature. You gain life equal to the sacrificed creature's toughness. Now, usually you don't want to do that, but it is very nice to sometimes chump block with something you know is going to die, but then before damage you sack it, you gain some life. So you prevent damage and you gain life. So, like, it's not a bad card if you're trying to stall. I know I've done it a few times with it, and it actually did end up saving me and winning me a game, because it gave me the time I needed to get the pieces I needed to take down my opponent. So, you know, gave me time to get my removal, to get creatures back on board, and, you know, it won me a game. So it's not a terrible card. Like, I know a lot of people sighed when they saw it, but I think it's pretty decent. And then, lastly, very, very good card, like holy heck, 4 Sword Point Diplomacy. Whew, so much to say about this card. I know a lot of people don't like it. Let me first explain what it does. So, Sword Point Diplomacy, 3 mana sorcery, 2 and a black. Reveal the top 3 cards of your library. For each of those cards, put that card into your hand unless an opponent pays 3 life. Then exile the rest. So basically, yeah, so in case that was a bit confusing, you reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. For each card, your opponent can decide if it either goes into your hand or they can pay 3 life to put it in exile. Now, I know you're usually thinking, oh, well, why would my opponent let me have cards? They'll just exile them, or they'll exile the most important ones. But with this deck, you're being very aggressive. So, like, obviously, you don't do Sword Point Diplomacy early game. You do it late game when your hand's empty and you've been beating your opponent down for a lot. So they're going to be low on life. I mean, if you cast this and your opponent's on 10 life, and you've still got a board state, they're going to think twice about paying life. I mean, it doesn't matter. Say you draw gas. That's great. Either they pay through life to get rid of that gas, which hurts them and kind of helps you, or they decide not to pay 3 life, and then you just cost 3 mana to draw 3 cards. That's... whew, like, very, very rarely have I drawn this card and it's gone badly. Like, heck, even if it's just 3 lands, well, there you go. Even if you have a good state, and you got all the lands you need, and you play Source Points and you reveal 3 lands, your opponent's not going to exile them. However, you've just gone through 3 draws that would have been nothing, and now, you know, your next draw is probably going to be something worthwhile, so you've just saved yourself 3 turns of nothing. So, yeah. I mean, overall, yeah, that's my vampire deck. The lands aren't anything fancy. I'm running 23 lands. If I remember correctly, it's 11 swamps, 11 plains, and a single unclaimed territory, which is, when it enters the battlefield, you choose a creature type. It can tap for mana of any color for a creature spell of that type, or it can just tap for colorless. You know, it's just a tribal land. I've only got 1 because I could only find 1. I should probably get more because it's not bad. It's actually really good. It's good fixing for a tribal deck. And then just plains and swamps. So yeah, so that is my 60 card vampire tribal from Ixalan. When Rivals comes out, I'm definitely gonna do a video about what changes I've done in this deck, because I really love this deck. I want it to be better. I'm gonna make it better. I'm gonna have so much fun with it. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a nice day. I'll hopefully see you next time. Bye.